It's show.
Hey there, Next Reel fans. This is Kyle. I'm hosting this episode of Saturday Matinee, but I'm sort of popping in here before the episode actually starts because we had some late-breaking news. We had already recorded the episode when we got wind of some changes that the Academy has made to the Best Picture nominee criteria. So we thought it would be strange if none of us mentioned in the episode. So instead, we put out our version of the bat signal and assembled sort of an all-star group of our Next Reel commentators so that we could have a little micro discussion about that. And then we'll get into the rest of the episode proper. You will be hearing a full episode of Saturday Matinee. You just get a little bonus content up here at the top. I will see you on the other side.
All right, gents, we are here to talk Oscar news. We had a big item drop. This is like a big item that just dropped right late toward the end of this week. And it's all about the new inclusion requirements for the Best Picture race that will be starting in 2024. They have come out with 4 new sets of standards that people, if they want to be considered for Best Picture, have to follow. So I'm Andy, and I'm here with Pete and Steve. Hey, guys.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. At least he's on brand. Look, I want to say up front, I am incredibly bullish on these new rules. And I've been sitting here for a few minutes talking to Steve, and he has been trying to rain on my parade. And I'm very frustrated by that right now.
You could use some rain on your parade.
So, in other words, you're the Barbara Streisand in this picture, and he's the Omar Sharif.
Right.
Is that how we're looking
all right,
at this?
Omar? Let's. Who wants to lay out what the changes actually are, so that I can get rained on?
Okay, let me just walk through this real quick. So we have 4 new standards, and in order to be considered, a film has to have met 2 of them. They're fairly robust standards, but they each focus on a particular element of production. The first one, Standard A, is the on-screen representation, themes, and narratives. To achieve this standard, you have to meet one of the following criteria. And it's all about kind of the actors and the stories. Your number 1, the lead or significant supporting actors. At least one of the lead or significant supporting actors is from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. Point 2, the general ensemble cast, at least 30% of all actors in secondary and more minor roles are from at least 2 of the unrepresented groups that they're listing. And point 3, the main storyline or subject matter, theme or narrative of the film is centered on an unrepresented group.
I can't wait till all of our stories are about women, racial, ethnic group, LGBTQ, people with cognitive disabilities who are deaf or hard of hearing, but all played by white men a la the Birdcage. It's going to be great. Nailed it, Hollywood. Okay. So part of the thing, I can't remember if you said this, is part of the thing is that these rules only apply to Best Picture eligibility, right? They do not apply to any other category right now. And so one of the reasons that
nor just people making movies, right? If you're not running for if you have no aim for getting Best Picture nomination, it's like you don't even have to worry about these things.
That's exactly right. That's fine. Yeah. But if you want to play in the Best Picture category, then you have to have this acknowledgement that your stories are inclusive and diverse. And I am bullish about that. I think that's a good thing. And I think that for teams that are going to be moving forward, production teams moving forward in this category, actually moving in this direction will lift all boats, right? It will lift more productions doing more to be more diverse and inclusive. I have to assume goodwill that this is not just a hardship, that this is going to be something that is going to make productions and make movies better. Am I alone? Why is that crazy?
No, it's not crazy. It reminds me, I mean, oh geez, I forget how long ago it was. I was at the Phoenix Film Festival, and one of the films there was Aquila and the Bee, and the director, who's white male, people were asking him like, why this story? And he said, because if you're 10 years old and you're a white boy, he's like, everything happens to you. E.T. lands in your backyard. You get to go to Hogwarts, all these things, you're part of the Goonies, all of this stuff. He said, there are so many more interesting stories we can have when we look at other other categories of people and what stories are around them. And to me, this is putting that front and center on this, of bringing some diversity to the types of stories that are being told, the types of conflicts, the types of, character arcs that are going on, to show us something we haven't seen before. I love this part of it.
And that's all. I mean, just to point out also, that is specifically pointing out telling those other stories, right? That's really that third point that you're looking at here. What I like about the other two is, like, you can tell a lot of the same stories. You can tell E.T., but why not flesh it out with a little more diverse cast? Like, right? I mean, that's what I love about the idea of having these other points tied into this, is that it allows for a larger array of actors to be represented.
Did anyone notice that Tenet, a massive blockbuster movie, stars a black man? Like, that fits the lead or significant check? Thank you, Mr. Washington.
Right. Yep.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Standard A. Tenet meets it so far. Right.
Yes.
We should go through the list and see.
Right. So anyway, I think in terms of what we see on screen, Standard A is important. This will change in maybe subtle ways, maybe not. This will change what we see on screen. What is Standard B?
Standard B, this focuses on the leadership, creative leadership, and the project team. To achieve Standard B, the film must meet one of the criteria below, and there are, again, 3 criteria here. The first criteria is the creative leadership and department heads. At least 2 of the following creative leadership positions and department heads: casting director, cinematographer, composer, costume designer, director, editor, hairstylist, makeup artist, producer, production designer, set decorator, sound, visual effects supervisor, and writer, are from one of the underrepresented groups. And at least one of those positions must belong to the following, or to one of the following underrepresented racial or ethnic groups. So it's not just from an underrepresented group, which are women, racial or ethnic group, LGBTQ, or cognitive physical disabilities, but you also have to be from one of the other underrepresented groups. I don't understand. Am I reading that wrong? What am I reading there?
No, so it's talking about the 2 is the department heads. So you've got, within all those categories of however many departments they listed, at least 2 of the departments must have somebody
are from one of those groups, but those must belong to one of the other groups.
Right. Yes.
So you can have an LGBTQ person, but then they also have to be from one of these underrepresented race or ethnicity categories.
Well, so is that saying, as an example, an LGBTQ cinematographer must also be Asian or Pacific Islander at the same time? Or
that's what it reads like.
It's a little bit unclear.
Yes. I think, but it's odd because you also have in the first category racial or ethnic group.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're doubling up there. So basically, it's saying you have to be either a woman from a racial or ethnic group, LGBTQ, or somebody with cognitive or physical disabilities, or who's deaf or hard of hearing. But you also then have to fall into one of the underrepresented racial or ethnic groups. That's how I read that.
That's what it seemed. That's the letter of the law. How about that?
Okay. So interesting. Yes. All right. That's the first point. It's a little convoluted. And Tenet score, neither Christopher Nolan nor his wife fit.
No. But I would be interested.
I'm sure we could go through the department heads one by one to see who might fit.
I would be interested to see how many, like the diversity today. Is this setting a standard, too late? Like, is this going to change anything? Or when we look at all those casting, I mean, we talk about movies, that these categories are often like not white men anymore on newer movies. So I'm curious, if you just roll the dice on one of these department heads, if we've already got this one sort of covered.
I think they may not be white men, but I would still argue that there are also a lot of them that are white women.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it sounds like that doesn't count now.
Right.
Like you have to be.
Yeah, because you have to be
ethnic,
women
or ethnic group.
and of this underrepresented issue. Okay.
Yeah. Second point, other key roles, at least 6 other crew, team, and technical positions, excluding PAs, are from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. And then third, the overall crew compensation, at least 30% of the film's crew is from one of the underrepresented groups. So again, you have to meet one of those criteria to meet standard B.
Is this something, Andy, when you're putting together a production shoot, and I know most of what you would do is commercial, but you're putting together, is this something that you would ever know when you're bringing together, union representation and was this tracked?
It really wasn't. I mean, really, well, I mean, you're trying to hire either who, because it's like, well, I know that person is a great DP. I'm going to bring them on. And normally they would say, okay, well, I want this person to be my, these group of people to be my, all the rest of my team. Like they kind of pick their own team. That's often how it works because they have worked together a number of times and have developed a kind of a way about working together that just helps move things along. And oftentimes it's also who's available, right? You're calling around. It's like, I just need to find a costume designer for this project who is not working right now. And so I have never looked at, CVs of people to say, well, okay, but is this person of a racial or ethnic group that I need to include? And it's obviously not something people have ever put on those sorts of things because, sadly, I think it's one of those things that people in the past would have looked at as if they know that about me, then they aren't going to hire me. And now I feel like it's going to be an odd shift in the marketplace where if you haven't worked with people and you're putting CVs out, you're better off listing these things because they are then more likely to hire you if they know, hey, if I hire you, I can check this slot off.
We're profiling, but profiling for good.
Yeah, this is the one that I think is the potential for the biggest pushback of we're getting into quotas and all of that of we've got to fill this, we've got to check this box. So is it necessarily the best person for the position? No, but it fills this quota and we want to get for best picture. And I think that's the sort of the downside that people are going to say, oh, the qualified people are going to be pushed out of jobs because the studios are going to have to hire somebody out of these categories for that. But I think, and again, I think this is new. Everybody's digging into it. They're over at Vox. The critic there, Alyssa Wilkinson, put together an article and somebody asked, she said, well, does this mean a movie like The Irishman wouldn't be eligible for Best Picture? And she says, well, yeah, okay, you've got Scorsese, who's a white man, but as Andy pointed out, you do have a lot of white women. And for The Irishman, you had producer Emma Koskoff, casting director Ellen Lewis, and of course, Scorsese's longtime editor Thelma Schoonmaker. But then pointed out, you've got, cinematographer Rodrigo Prieto from Mexico. So basically made the case that that's fulfilling the requirements of Category B. So again, I think, so it's things like that. So again, I don't think it's going to filter things down so much. What I think the purpose is making sure we're providing those opportunities. And I think there are a lot of qualified people out there. So I think, the easy argument is the old argument of quotas and people losing out. But again, I think we see that there is already a good amount of diversity in a lot of these departments already out there. So I don't foresee, huge issues, with this. And I really like the idea of, again, getting all, representation and people out there, in these key roles. I mean, to think of the, what is it, B3, 30% of the film's crew is from the following underrepresented groups. I mean, that's a good chunk of that. But again, I think there's diversity in the workforce out there and making sure that that's what's going on in the industry as well, that we don't have.
And that's really the issue, right? It's not that, Laszlo Kovacs had to start somewhere, right? Matthew Libatique had to start somewhere. There's a lot of great crew people who had to get their start somewhere, and they have proven themselves to be amazing at what they do.
Yes.
It's not that you have to settle for somebody who might potentially be not as good as somebody else that you could put into that slot. It's about now there's an opportunity for those people to kind of grow into these positions. And so I feel like it may cause some growing pains now, but look at where it could potentially put the kind of the filmmaking crews in 10, 20, 30 years when a lot more people have had these opportunities that just hadn't been presented before. I think it only leads to eventual kind of good thing, even if it does seem a little kind of
quota-ish,
pushy, perhaps. Yeah, quota-ish right now.
So where did we leave off? What was the next standard? Did we get through them all?
Standard C is industry access and opportunities. To achieve this, you have to meet both of the criteria. The first one is about paid apprenticeship and internship opportunities, providing those for underrepresented groups. And the second is training opportunities and skills development. And this is offering training and work opportunities for below-the-line development to people from the racial or underrepresented groups. Again, I think this one ties in nicely with the last one. It's about making more job opportunities available for these groups.
It builds right off of the case you were making of people need to get started, and by creating these opportunities, entry point opportunities for these groups of saying, okay, get them started, give them exposure, get them in the door, all of this. Now, the counter argument I heard to this is, you can create internship opportunities, and then, okay, you're great, you're this intern, and then it's a dead end. We're checking the box by, we've got this a person that's an apprentice, we've got this intern, whatever, but we never have any intent of taking them farther with that. And I think it's is that realistic? Yeah, there are probably some people out there that may operate that way. But again, I think at a certain point, enough people are going to be opening doors for these underrepresented groups that we're going to hit critical mass of. There's so much diversity. We have all of these voices, all of these perspectives that are getting in the door, that are getting these opportunities to be part of the industry, that it's going to just have a long-term impact. As you said, it may take 10, 15, 20 years, but as we get more of these voices and perspectives in the industry through opportunities like this, I think it's just going to benefit, everyone in the long term of that diversity in the workplace.
One of the things we know about changing culture is that when you do it, there are going to be people who push back in ways that are unsavory. And I think, sure, we're going to have critics able to point out lots of people doing things, taking shortcuts for budgetary reasons, trying to figure out a way to shoehorn someone with a last name that sounds diverse when really they're from, Pennsylvania, like whatever. Like we're going to see those stories, but that's how you change a culture. Is you have to just let them get it out of their system until new behavior is normalized. And again, I feel like if we assume goodwill, I think there is a lot that can come out of harvesting great talent from underrepresented groups. And if that's our goal, then the words on the page shouldn't matter so much. And I think that's important.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Last standard, audience development. To meet this standard, the film must meet it's just one criteria, and it is about representation in marketing, publicity, and distribution. The studio and or film company has multiple in-house senior executives from among the following underrepresented groups on their marketing, publicity, and or distribution teams. Now, this one, my understanding is, came specifically from one of the people who was on the committee putting this together, who had put a film together, and it was an all-black film, and it was a black story, and they walked into the studio's office to discuss the marketing and publicity for it, and it was a room full of white men, and they said, okay, this is going to be a little awkward to figure this out with this group. And so that's where that really came from. And I thought it was an interesting one to include as one of the 4 standards.
With the amount of money that is being put into advertising and marketing these big films, but I think this represents like an incredibly important part of getting a film into the theater and getting your eyeballs on it. And the eyeballs that actually create the film should be at least in some way similar in what they see, how they see the world, to actually market the story in a way that's going to get people into the seats. I think this is incredibly important.
there has been some backlash.
No.
Surprise, surprise.
What? Really? Where is it, Andy? Is it on the internet?
Of course not, Pete. It's real
it's his neighbor
cognitive
next
discussions.
He's shouting over the fence at his neighbor.
Genial town halls held in every neighborhood?
Yes.
No, of course it is. And it's from a lot of people who are in the industry. Of course, they get up in arms about things like this. And, there are people who have voices and they are out there saying things. Kirstie Alley, everyone's favorite from Cheers and who's provided a lot of sideline entertainment since then. She had this to tweet. I've been in the Motion Picture Academy for 40 years. The Academy celebrates freedom of unbridled artistry expressed through movies. The new rules to qualify for Best Picture are dictatorial. Anti-artist Hollywood, you're swinging so far left, you're bumping into your own. But this is a disgrace to artists everywhere. Can you imagine telling Picasso what had to be in his effing paintings? You people have lost your minds. Control artists, control individual thought. Oscar Orwell. Diversity and inclusion should be taught so well and so naturally and genuinely that it becomes second nature to our children. It feels like she threw that last one in to kind of like create a little conversational pivot there. Dean Cain said, how about we judge on this criteria? Which film was the best picture? Also, when do we start handing out participation Oscars? And James Woods said, madness.
Well, come on. So, what else is James Woods? Forget I asked that. No,
yeah.
We know what else James Woods would say.
Well, and the Academy put out their accomplishments, their inclusion initiative, Aperture 2020, and they did a little update on some stats on just the Academy membership. And from 2015 to 2020, 45% of new members are women. The percent of active members from underrepresented ethnic and racial communities had increased from 10% to 19%. That's from 554 up to 1,787. 36% of new members are from underrepresented ethnic and racial communities in the organization. So they're not only putting this focus on the films, but also looking at their own membership of, because you could say, well, that's great. All these films are out there, but the people making the choices about the nominations and voting, if it's all a bunch of, white men. So they're tackling it from that side as well to make sure that the films are out there, and then the community that's going to be voting and nominating, all that also is well-balanced mixture of these different groups that are currently underrepresented. So I think tackling it from both sides like that is going to be a transformative, shift in what we start seeing. And I think one of the press releases they mentioned, the fact that, look at what our best picture was this year. It was Parasite. It's clearly setting a trend of, there are films out there that are from these other, underrepresented racial and ethnic groups that are quality films. And how do we get more of them in here? And this is one of the ways to get that done.
I think, Steve, that is a primary critique. And as speaking as somebody who's already bullish on making these changes for Best Picture, I think it's a good thing. But when you look at the 2020 accomplishments list, isn't it fair, at least on some level, to say, look, it's already happening. Why do you have to shoehorn these rules in for Best Picture when you're already making such strides in every single department here? Speaking as just a sort of a straw man, like, aren't we already doing enough? Doesn't the chart speak for itself?
No, it doesn't. I mean,
people assume that just because of those changes that it's going to lead to these greater changes like overnight, and it just doesn't work that way. It's something that's going to take a long time to get there if that's how you're doing it, right? And by kind of creating this forced thing there, and again, it's only if you're wanting to jump into the Oscar race. I mean, and I will say there are a lot of people who also are in support of this. And so you're getting it from both sides. There are people who are, I mean, I just read some of the negative ones, but I mean, there are plenty of people who are very thrilled by what they're doing. And they're not, and believe it or not, it includes some white people.
What?
It's nice to see that, right? It's nice to see that there are people who are realizing, this is actually a good thing. It's going to allow for letting all this grow and kind of create a better future. And it's just inevitably, and especially in a time where we are right now politically, where things have become so divided. My concern is, is this going to be something else that continues pushing this divide in society, and inevitably it probably will. And there are probably going to be a lot of people just up in arms continually about things like this. But it's growing pains. I guess that's how I'm seeing it.
Well, as I understand it, correct me when I start lying. These rules are not mandated for 2 more years, right? So we have a kind of a
2024 is when they kick in,
rollout, right? So you get they're going to be tracking, and you'll be filing an affidavit that explains, a confidential affidavit that explains and defines what your breakdown looks like, but it will not be mandated for inclusion until 2024. So it'll be an interesting couple of years. I'm curious to see what kind of films we start getting out of this, and whether we notice any sort of appreciable change in the fabric of Best Picture.
I mean, look at 2018. You had Black Panther, you had Black Klansman, you had Bohemian Rhapsody, Roma. So last year, Parasite was Best Picture. Okay, we'll skip over Green Book, and there's.
It just because because we didn't like it doesn't mean it wouldn't have met the standard.
No, it would have met the standards, but was it Best Picture? No. But then, 2016, you've got Moonlight, other nominees. You've got, Fences, Hidden Figures, Lion, 2014, Birdman wins Best Picture. Selma is nominated. So it's, 2013, 12 Years a Slave, Dallas Buyers Club. So I don't see, that we're going to have like a huge shift where all of a sudden, oh my gosh, we're cutting out all of these films. It's already there. I think they're just trying to formalize this a little bit to ensure that there is an intentional process in this. It's not just by merit of like, oh, well, we happen to, it's a backlash against Oscars so white, so we better, make a concerted effort to do this. Let's make it part of just the process and culture that this is who we are as an industry. And this is the fact. I know there was lots of debates, last year about Parasite. Like, well, how can a foreign film be the best picture? Well, best picture is best picture is best picture. It's not best American made picture, because you can go back and look and see that that's not always the case. It's the whole subtitle. Okay, it wasn't an English language film. Is that what was really about? It wasn't that it was a foreign film. It was the fact that it was a non-English language film, because we've had other films, when you look at, Birdman, the director there is not, an American. So I think that's...
Well, and I think that speaks to kind of the point of our series right now. The fact that Parasite won Best Picture in the 92nd Academy Awards. It's the first time that it's happened in the Academy's history. I think that it speaks to this slow shift that is happening, and I'm looking forward to it. I think in the past, as we've talked about on the actual series that we're doing, where we're looking at all the foreign language films nominated for Best Picture, so often it was foreign films were skipped over because Hollywood seemed to have an idea that the Oscars are for us, and this is what it's all about, and it's not about these other things. And I get it. There are plenty of award ceremonies out there that are focused on particular things. And I think that there were a lot of people who said the Oscars were a celebration of what Hollywood was putting out. And I think that has certainly shifted with the times. And I like to think that we're at a place right now where maybe it's about a little more than that. And the name Best Picture might mean something greater than that. So we shall see. I mean, there are people who still say it's actually not even enough, because as you just pointed out, Steve, Green Book, Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, Roma. There are a lot of films already that are fitting this. They could do more.
Yes.
But I am curious to see how things like The Favorite, A Star Is Born, Vice, start finding ways to meet the other criteria.
Well, it's a fascinating turn. Even if, we thought we didn't actually need a way to make Best Picture more political. It turns out maybe we did, I guess. So this will be great. It's going to be great, you guys. I'm very excited about it. And you have to admit, it's commendable PR on behalf of the Academy to codify rules that were already trends. It's amazing.
Right.
Well done. So we'll see how they play out.
years after hashtag Oscar so white.
right.
Yeah.
We got to let the team get back to the show. So thank you, Kyle and Tommy and Ray, for letting us jump in and have essentially a whole bonus show right in the middle of the beginning. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
All right, welcome to Saturday Matinee. Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
I am Kyle Olson. I will be hosting this fine show this morning. They put me in the big chair. God knows why. I'm usually found on the Marvel Movie Minute with Rob. They got him to do last week, and so they got me to do this week. But they would not send me in here alone. God, no. We have the infamous and notorious Ray.
I'm watching you, Kyle.
And the most handsome man in podcasting, Tommy.
That was a terrifying, Ray. And I like horror movies, and I didn't care for it.
Oh, okay. So before we get into like news and stuff too, there is a question I've been waiting to ask since I've been listening to Saturday Matinee. Ray, you actually went out to a movie theater and saw a movie.
That's right.
I did.
I have to hear this story. What is movie going like in a COVID world?
So I wanted to go back to the movies really badly, but at the time, the only thing that was playing was the New Mutants.
Right.
So I went to the movie theater and I scoped it out, and I'm in the parking lot, and it looks like, a deserted wasteland. So I'm like, it might be safe to go in. So I go in, and I'm the only patron in the theater.
Wow. Did you scare? Was everyone inside like, ah? Or did they not remember? Did he try to hand you popcorn or like a bucket full of tickets? Like, had they forgotten how to do their job?
Welcome. I forgot how to say this. Welcome to the...
It was kind of funny because the kid that sold me my ticket, really did have a hard time selling me my ticket. Like, he didn't know the process.
Oh, yeah.
I assume it's just because he was new, but because he was really young. But, and then the week after that, I saw Tenet.
Oh.
Wow. Wait, how was the New Mutants? Or have you already talked about this?
New Mutants,
Yeah.
I thought was... the first 2/3 were okay. Like, it seemed pretty unique.
Standard X-Men or standard horror, would you say?
I wouldn't
Good
say either, to be perfectly honest. It really did kind of do its own thing. But then... yeah. Actually, there are some elements of it.
Oh.
But then it all falls apart in the third act.
Yep.
As many X-Men films do.
And then I saw Tenet last weekend, and again, only patron in the theater.
Wow.
But that was terrific.
Oh, good. Okay. So you feel safe about it? You feel okay?
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm watching to see if any more people start coming, because if I was in a situation where there was a decent amount of people, that would definitely be a factor I would consider before buying a ticket.
I like the idea of you sitting in the parking lot casing a movie theater like a bank. like you're a one-man Ocean's 11. You're Ocean's 1. Like, I don't know if we could pull this off.
Well, I do wear leather gloves, and I have these tiny binoculars, and I look around.
Perfect.
I drove by our local theater, and the parking lot was pretty full, on a Saturday afternoon. So people are seeming to be going back. So maybe the power of Tenet will be what will turn this whole thing around.
Well, it's worth going to see that movie, in my opinion.
Yeah?
So
non-spoiler review is...
I'll put it this way. I was a little scared at first because everyone was saying it was really hard to follow. But in all honesty, I found that if you have no problems with Inception, you'll have no problems with this.
Okay.
It's very different. Very different. I really I just really can't compare it to anything.
How is Robert Pattinson as an action hero?
He's actually really good. My favorite person in the movie, though, was probably Kenneth Branagh.
Oh, really?
I don't know how you pronounce it. It's funny. I was actually just listening to the Film Board episode about Murder on the Orient Express, and how Tommy and JJ kept fighting on the proper way to pronounce Brana.
Yeah.
Brana.
Yeah. We'll never know. I've heard Kenneth say it 3 different ways.
There you go. But John David Washington is really great too. He really does a good job of leading the movie. I really recommend it. I thought it was great.
Does it give you more hope for Batman?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it does, because not seen him in much. I think the last thing I saw him in was The Lighthouse, which I really enjoyed. But this, I didn't even recognize him in it. You could watch this and totally forget that it's him.
Ever since The Rover, he has become a remarkably interesting actor. Like, I hope more people are separating him from Twilight, just because, I mean, he's really, I really loved him in Good Time. Good Time? The one by the Uncut Gems guys, the film they made first. It stars Robert Pattinson, and he and his brother are on the run, and it's really strong.
Sounds like we need to have an RPAT film festival.
Yeah.
But as we're talking about new things, let's get into the news. Okay, first thing that popped up I saw was that they're making a Jack Reacher television series, and they cast someone who's slightly taller than Tom Cruise.
Right, because Jack Reacher is famously very tall, right?
Yes, yeah. In the books, he's supposed to be 6'5", I think. I mean, he's like, I thought one of the funniest things in that Jack Reacher movie was when apparently they hadn't updated the script all the way, because there's a scene where people are talking about like, oh, Jack Reacher, like how we know him? Oh, you'll know him when you see him. It's like,
because really? He's Tom Cruise. He's a very, very famous actor.
Yeah, you can't miss him.
A notoriously short actor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this time they've actually cast somebody who's a significant physical presence. That's Alan Ritchson. He's from Titans. That's what I've seen him in, at least. He's been in other stuff too, but that's most recent. And he is a slab of meat. Like he's a handsome man, but like, man, he is also a wall. Like,
calm down, Kyle. We treat these people as people.
It's true. All right. I'm sorry, Alan. But you know, if ever you wanted to scale the wall, like, he's the guy. But I'm very excited about this. Like, I think this is I think having it as a television series is much better than a film franchise, because trying to squeeze a whole novel into 2 hours can be a stressful experience.
Of course. I forgot how media works. I was like, well, I'm worried. I was thinking they would squeeze an entire novel into one episode. Of course, that's not how it works.
So no,
they would do that. Yeah, there would be
season is going to be one novel.
I think it's really fun, and I actually really liked the first Jack Reacher movie with Tom Cruise. Yeah, I thought it was really the second one was directed by a former boss of mine, Edward Zwick. Zwick, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Or was it? Didn't he do Legends of the Fall?
He did. He's done a number of things. Yeah, Glory. Yeah. The Siege, which we're currently living under.
Oh yes, The Siege.
No, I would definitely watch that TV show. Where's it coming on? It's
going to be on Amazon Prime.
I have that. Hooray!
Hey, all right. Don't even do another subscription. Yeah, written by Nick Santora, who did Prison Break. So that should be.
Oh, great. Okay.
Right. So that all looks like good credentials.
So I'm assuming that this storyline is completely separate from the movies.
Yes, okay. This is a alternate universe. I think.
I
don't think the two Reachers will cross. They won't have like a Maverick thing where like he's handing off the mantle or anything. I mean, I think it's
there's one episode that's $60 million.
Right. That's the Beverly Hills Cop thing all over again.
Right.
So the next story that popped up I thought was interesting is that they're making a Robocop prequel.
What?
But it doesn't have Robocop in it because they're making a series about Dick Jones.
Dick Jones, the older guy that ran. I'm very disappointed.
Yes.
After the guy gets shot up in the boardroom.
Right.
Yeah. Like, and one of the executives, they just like picked a thing there. Like
the guy that develops Ed 209.
Yeah.
Who asked for this?
I know, that's what I was saying. Like, I look at it and I go, really? Like, let's take the most interesting thing about that franchise and just make it about a corporate guy, I guess.
Yeah. When you were watching RoboCop, where you were like, oh, less robots, more board meetings.
That's exactly it. That's exactly right. Because that's what it's going to be. Because
really?
I have a quote from the guy, and he says, there's the idea about business and law enforcement in the city of Detroit a minute and a half in the future. It would be a way to do all sorts of stories about business and tech, Silicon Valley, corporations, snakes in suits, cops, all that. It's a wonderfully rich tapestry.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would love to wander around in that world again, because the world that Verhoeven made is so interesting, but there's just no reason for it to be RoboCop. Make it something else. Any kind of mechanized law enforcement would be fine. I guess because brand recognition or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I think it feels to me like a little bit like Caprica. Like they had, Battlestar Galactica was so popular, they just found this other series that had nothing to do with it about robots, and they're like, what if it was a prequel? And they just like slapped the names on and sent it out the door. Yeah, I guess you're hoping for brand recognition at that point.
Right. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah. Well, I would maybe check that out because that world is fantastic. Any kind of future world in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like what, Running Man, Total, like they're always just sort of interesting because we didn't quite know how to do the future yet. Right. So everything is sort of normal. And then they're like, hey, pass the Zilf. And you're like, what? Like there's just this tiny, like, don't slip on the Morgbot juice. And you're like, what? But everyone still is like driving a Toyota Corolla or whatever.
Our first pandemic-themed movie, Doug Liman is supposed to helm called Lockdown. It is a pandemic-themed heist flick starring possibly Anne Hathaway.
He has to do his Tom Cruise in space movie first.
Yes. Yeah.
He's directing that? Oh, I didn't know that. He's doing. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Oh, they worked so well on Live, Die, Repeat. That's right.
Yeah, that's great. That was a good movie.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
I was interested in this story because a lot of executives and directors that I've read articles about are saying the one thing people aren't going to want is pandemic movies.
Yes,
and like Jason Blum, who knows?
Blumhouse?
Yeah. Is it Blumhouse?
I think it's Blumhouse. Yeah.
Jason Blum has already come out and said, hey, all of you horror writers that are writing a cheap Blumhouse movie set in the pandemic, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Like he's like, everyone stop because people are going to want to get back to normal, is his bet. Yeah. Because it seems like it would be so easy. Actually, I watched a remarkably good horror movie set during the pandemic called Host. It's on Shudder right now. I got a free trial just to watch that and immediately canceled it because it's Shudder. But so there is room for that. But I thought this was interesting that they're making like a big bet on it. And if it's going to be a heist movie, maybe that's interesting. Yeah,
I say when you put heist movie in, I'm already on board.
Right? But, that's also with me with like some submarine thrillers and courtroom dramas. It can be like,
interesting.
Like it could be called Fart Court, and I'll be like, I'm in. It doesn't have to be good. I love courtroom dramas so much.
How could we combine all of those things into one epic? Like, start with the heist, they get arrested, they have a court trial, and then it turns into a horror movie at the end. There's 3 acts right there.
All during the pandemic.
Right.
All during the pandemic. Yes.
That's when I will be found dead, having starved to death in a theater because I forgot to leave or eat.
It'd be 3 hours long. All right, Hollywood, we're here. Give us a call. We're ready to sell it. Okay, so when I was on Sabat originally talking about the Snyder Cut when that got allowed, I made a prediction, and that prediction is coming true. The floodgates have opened, and all the other directors are coming up to Warner Brothers saying, hey, so director's cuts, huh? And so the latest one is
of course.
Mick G. Mick G has been like, hey, you want a harder cut of Terminator Salvation? Because I got it for you.
I am so confused by this one because I already own a Terminator Salvation director's cut on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So what in the world is this?
Set. Right.
But have you seen the director's cut of the director's cut? Wait, which one was Terminator Salvation? Was that
Terminator
the one?
Salvation was the Christian Bale Terminator.
Oh, I liked that. No. Yes, I liked that one. Wait, which was the one?
Sam Worthington.
Oh, no.
It was the first one without Arnold.
That's right.
Well, I mean, technically, they used his likeness toward the end, but he's not in it.
Yeah, he's not a character in it. He's
a
prop.
What was my horrible joke about that movie? Oh, when at the very end, when Christian Bale has to tell the kid that he saved, he's like, one last thing. I need you to go back in time and bang my mom. like it started to get so weird with all of the different timelines that's what he was. He was like, for all this to happen, I need you to bone mom. Was that the one where it was a huge twist that Worthington was a robot?
Right.
And then that came like halfway through the movie, but they put it in the trailer.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Maddening. Maddening.
Oh, advertising.
Why? And then the Terminator movie after that, they completely ruined the big twist in the trailer.
Did they?
Yeah, because in Terminator Genesis, it was this huge twist that John Connor is actually a Terminator now. But they gave it away in the damn trailer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't see that one. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and supposedly one of the things in this new version of Terminator Salvation is supposed to be an original ending that does that. Like the idea was somehow the Sam Worthington Terminator character would become John Connor. Like he would take John Connor's skin, and so he would like live on as John Connor. Like John Connor would die, and he would somehow like take his form or something like that. And so it would be Terminator who was actually thought himself of a human pretending to be John Connor, and that was what their big ending was going to be.
Can somebody please just take this franchise out to pasture already?
No, it is so painful now. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, something should be left away. There is no fate, but no more Terminator movies, please. And speaking of the franchises that won't die, Ridley Scott's going to make another Alien movie.
Oh, let someone else make it, please.
Is someone blackmailing Ridley Scott? Like, do they have something on him? Like, what? I every movie that comes out feels like, all right, I guess I have to do another Alien. Like, he doesn't care about aliens at all. He's interested in robots,
right?
So, but not aliens
and mortality.
Yes.
Like, just make that movie. Yeah.
Well, now he's got the HBO series. Like, do you think he could get his robot fix on that? But yeah, I don't know why they keep doing the alien. Because, like, is anybody clamoring for more Alien movies?
I am, but just not from him. Because I love the Alien universe so much.
Sure.
But Weyland-Yutani, what is it? The company?
Yeah, Weyland-Yutani.
Weyland-Yutani. Yeah, no, I love all of that. But the last two movies were just so rough. Prometheus and Covenant. I mean... Yeah. I just let anybody else do it.
You know?
Oh, so you think Ridley is the problem?
He's got to be. I mean, so much of Prometheus was so dumb that wouldn't get past anyone that wasn't like crazily powerful that no one's saying no to.
It was interesting, like when they were sort of handing it off from person to person. Like you went from Ridley, who did the straight up horror movie,
right?
You went to James Cameron, who did the
masterpiece.
Action.
Yeah,
exactly. Aliens, nothing wrong with that. Then you went to David Fincher, and like people have their opinions about Alien 3, but it was a well shot, well put together movie.
Correct.
And then you went to 4, where I can't even remember the French director's name.
Right. The guy behind
the City of Lost Children.
Right. City of Lost Children. Right.
That Joss Whedon wrote. Right. And Alien Resurrection, which again,
it was interesting.
But it was unique.
Yes.
It was unique. And then when Daddy showed up to like take back the franchise, it was like, oh
yeah. It's like he's doing one for me, one for them, but he forgot about one for me. He's just making one for them over and over again.
You know, I think I'm the only person in the Next Real family that actually doesn't mind Prometheus. Although I will say though, I think it would have been better if it wasn't an Alien movie.
Correct. Oh, correct. Very much so.
But
there was no need for that part.
But most of it plays as if it's not. There are very few elements of it that tie into the Alien storyline.
I like a lot of the story in Prometheus. It's just the character motivations. There's so much. There's so many dumb manipulations just to lead to things. The two guys that are like, one of them is in charge of mapping, and he gets lost. He gets lost in like 10 minutes. And like I mean, there's just too much nonsense. But there's a lot of really smart and profound ideas in Prometheus. I do agree. It's just like they got the hard parts right, and the easy parts were really kind of a mess for me.
Well, that's all I got for news. Unless you guys have anything else that you think we need to talk about.
Nope. I'm all newsed out.
All right, then let's move on to trailers.
Hey!
And Ray, you were the first one in there.
Uh-oh.
Tell us about this lovely young lady named Rebecca.
Mrs. De Winter, may I present Mrs. Danvers?
Welcome to Mandalay.
Never seen a house like this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you'd been a lady's maid.
This is all very new to me.
Oh, I'm sure you won't disappoint him, madam, if that's your concern. We did a lot of entertaining when the late Mrs. De Winter was alive.
You can talk to me about her. I have no secrets from you.
All marriages have their secrets.
So have either of you guys seen the Hitchcock movie, Rebecca? Came out in 1939 or 40?
Embarrassingly, no.
It was actually his first movie that he made in America, and it was the only movie he ever made that won the Best Picture Oscar. But and it was based off the novel by Daphne du Maurier, same title, Rebecca. And this movie is not a remake of Hitchcock's film, but it's rather a new adaptation of the novel. So I'm just going to kind of glide through the synopsis here. After a whirlwind romance in Monte Carlo with handsome widower Maxim de Winter, a newly married young woman played by my future wife Lily James arrives.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
You should be happy together.
Arrives at Manderley, her new husband's imposing family estate, which is on a windswept English coast. Naive and inexperienced, she begins to settle into the trappings of her new life, but finds herself battling the shadow of Maxim's first wife, the elegant and urbane Rebecca, whose haunting legacy is kept alive by Manderley's sinister housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers, played by the inimitable Kristen Scott Thomas.
Oh, that face, man.
Yes.
Kristen Scott Thomas.
And I don't know, you guys said you haven't seen it, but I highly recommend the Hitchcock movie. It is really great. I have the Criterion Blu-ray. I love it. It's a terrific movie. I really would like to read the novel, and seeing the trailer here.
Yeah.
I love the direction that they seem to be going in. It is, who directed this son of a gun?
Ben Wheatley.
Ben Wheatley. I really like the tone of this trailer. It's
the trailer is outstanding,
right?
Like even just for I know nothing. Like if I'd seen the movie, it would probably during my college theater, my college movie courses.
Sure.
So I had totally forgotten that at this point. So everything was all new to me. But even just so not knowing where it was going, like it starts out and you can just tell the difference in the cinematography from when they meet on the beach to when they're at the house. Like all of a sudden, everything gets cold and sharp. I mean,
super
like
gothic.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love it. And I love, again, I haven't read the novel. I've only seen the Hitchcock movie, but there were certain scenes in the trailer that I could kind of pinpoint where in the story they fall. And they just seem so much more fleshed out than some of the stuff in Hitchcock's movie that I'm really excited to see what they do with this adaptation. It is rated PG-13. And if you're one of those people that likes to know why, it is for some sexual content, partial nudity, thematic elements, and smoking.
Oh, maybe all at the same time.
Oh, so dangerous. That was a great pick. This was not on
that was a really good one.
This was not on my list whatsoever, or on my brain, whatever list.
Yes.
So I'm excited about it.
And it's
great.
It's a Netflix release, and it comes out on October 21st.
Excellent.
Right. Yeah. I'm a little I have not seen a Ben Wheatley movie. So I'd be interested to see, but he did direct my least favorite episode of the new Doctor Who series. So, but it has a screenplay by Jane Goldman, which I'm excited about too. As a writer, she wrote both the Kingsman movies and she wrote X-Men First Class. So she's got her credentials. She's legit. All right. So my trailer came up and it just came out recently, and I've watched it probably 5 or 6 times the last day, and that's Dune.
There's something happening to me. There's something awakening in my mind. I can't control it. What did you see? There's a crusade coming. Do you often dream things that happen just as you dreamed them? Yes. The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die. What's in the box? Pain.
This, basically, this hits me like porn, man. Like, it's everything I wanted and more. And when I was a kid, the Dune came out, and it was a joke. It was a flop. Like, everybody made fun of it. The toys came out, and and they sat on the shelves. I mean, it was known. It was. I don't even know if there's any kind of flop of the day. I was going to say Ishtar, but even that's like 30 years old at this point.
Yeah,
a gigantic flop. But then later on during college, one of my friends was telling me how great Dune was and everything, and they sat me down and they Sherpa'd me. They basically sat down and said, here's what's going on. And so they whenever I was like, what is the giant guy in the tank? Who's the, they would pause and say, oh, that's actually, and they would break it down for me. And having that experience, it has become one of my favorite stories. I'd say the movie has its issues. The original movie has its issues. But this new version seems to have addressed all of it, because I watched it that's everything I saw in my head. It looks so great. And I'm hoping that this will hit people like Game of Thrones did, where they'll just embrace the fact that the politics and the machinations and the beautiful people, it'll all come together, and people will embrace this and just get on with the weird, because there's some weird stuff in there. So had you guys had any experience with Dune in the past?
I watched the one when I was younger. All I remember is Icha. And of course, Sting and the sandworms, which I thought was pretty canny to save the sandworms in this trailer for the very end. And they're they make Tremors look like something smaller. I couldn't come up with a good wordplay there. But no, it seems like 9 movies. But not necessarily in a bad way. I mean, part of me was like, is this a series? It looks massive, but I will see anything by this director, Denis Villeneuve. Yeah, I will see anything by him. Villeneuve.
Well, they put out, I didn't know how to pronounce the name until they put out a special. Stephen Colbert is a huge fan of Dune, and so he did a Q&A with the cast after the trailer came out. And so that's when he introduced him, he was like, and now the director, Denis Villeneuve. And I was like, oh, that's nice. That's not great. Denis Villeneuve? Okay.
I'm excited. This is not my genre, but I'm really excited. I love Timothée Chalamet, and I love the director, and I love Oscar Phoenix. No, I love Oscar Phoenix, but you're right. Oscar Isaac is in this movie. He's pretty good too. Yeah.
Man can wear a beard. Oof.
Man can.
Right?
He has such a good beard. I'm surprised he's not on this podcast. Because this podcast is a beard off, and I'm losing all the time.
Well, we tried, but
hey, you're off to a good start right now, though.
I haven't shaved in 3 days. I look like a bear man. I just caught myself scratching my back on a tree. Okay. So my trailer is Sybil.
Je crois que j'ai besoin que vous m'aidiez. Je suis enceinte de 2 mois, je peux pas le garder. J'ai tellement peur, je peux pas lui dire.
Elle est arrivée dans un état un peu critique.
Tu peux pleurer si tu veux. J'ai peur que tout ce que j'ai construit, ça s'écroule.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Sibylle. J'ai commencé un nouveau roman. Non, je me sens dans une très très bonne énergie. J'ai surtout envie d'écrire. En fait, je suis obsédée par ça.
This is what seems to be, it's a French film directed by Justine Triet.
It's a very French film.
You can tell it's 2 seconds into the trailer, even without them speaking, I'm like, French film. Yeah. But it is about it's Sybil spelled Sibyl, and it seems to be, the best that you could tell from the trailer, it is about a psychotherapist that starts to sour on her job, and she wants to go back into writing, and she starts to involve herself with one of her patients and writing the patient's story as if it is a fictional situation, and she gets invited on set, it looks like, and it all just starts melting together with reality. I'm a huge fan of unreliable narrators. I love things like Notes on a Scandal, where people are twisting themselves into someone else's reality in order to make it their own. And I just thought it was really kind of beautiful, and the kind of movie, it's a movie for adults. And we don't have a lot of those sometimes. Rebecca is definitely one of those. But the fact that there's no scandal, there's no it's just kind of it seems like a beautiful kind of movie. So I'm interested. I didn't have it on my list, but now it is.
What'd you think, Ray?
Whenever I saw the title, I thought that maybe this was, kind of a reimagining of Sybil Shepherd's sitcom.
Wait, it's not? Oh, everything I said
wait, hold on. Actually.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this thing looks crazy. Like
the moonlighting story.
It's one of those movies like, this is going to sound completely dumb and ridiculous, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like, one of those movies where people's lives just go incredibly out of control and it's a train wreck, but you can't help but watch, and it just looks incredibly entertaining.
Yeah. I agree. It looks like it'll be a little bit of walls closing in, which I have a love-hate with, and and everyone in it is beautiful.
Yeah, I couldn't find any type of release for it. Like it said it came out last year at Cannes.
Right.
Right.
Then I couldn't find anything else. Did you find like where we can discover it?
I checked it out and it says we'll never know. No, I didn't. I forgot to do that. Okay. I constantly.
No, that's right. I looked and I didn't see. So it's out there somewhere. So keep your eye out. Keep your eye out for Sybil. We're going to do a little game. This is a brand new game that I came up with. I'm calling it Pitch Session. This is not a random thing. I actually let these guys know what I wanted to do in advance because I wanted to have their full educated opinion as opposed to just coming up with something on the fly. So the idea is Netflix has come to us individually and said, you are allowed to make a series based on any horror movie ever made. You have to do like at least a full season. You can do it Watchmen style, or you can try and let it run for as long as possible. So I took a solid, just single on this one because I think the one that came to me first was Cabin in the Woods.
Ooh.
So Cabin in the Woods is such a great format for this because you can tell so many different stories within that. So like over the course of the season, what I was thinking is you have basically like you're following two different paths. So like you're following the path of the people, like a new person who's coming to work for whatever the organization. Was it the organization? Did they even have a name?
I don't remember them having a name. They probably did, but I don't remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they come to join the organization. So they're learning. So the audience is learning along with this person as they're inside. And then you're also following the teenagers as you're meeting them one by one as they're putting them together. So you're following sort of the two tracks back and forth. And then when they get to the middle of the season, that's when they combine in the Cabin in the Woods, and then they pick the form of their destructor. And it goes on from there. And then, of course, it'll end with all them dying. And the next season, you can have a whole new group of attractive young people in the next season. So, yes, Cabin in the Woods is my pick.
Nice. That's really smart. And
wouldn't that be fun?
And ironically, like the prequel for Robocop, I would like to know as much as I can about the Bradley Whitford side of that world.
Yeah, exactly. You could do fun stuff with the other organization too, because we know that there's one in Japan. We know there's one you could have that rivalry of or even like people coming over from the other one, seeing how it ran like an exchange program.
Crossover.
That's how you do it, right?
Yep.
Spin-offs. Telling you, I know the first one ended pretty drastically, that you couldn't do a sequel to it, but I think there's a way you could roll it back and you could really tell a lot of different stories in that world.
So, I love that idea. That's a great choice.
Would you like to go next, Tommy?
Sure. Mine isn't as good. Is that a fun teaser?
Ooh, I'm excited now.
Mine is based on a Stephen King book, which is okay, and a movie, which is bad, but redone as a series could be very interesting and could have legs. Needful Things. Needful Things is the story.
Excellent.
It's a Castle Rock. I think it was billed as the last Castle Rock story, which turned out not to be true. But Leland Gestalt, I should have all of this information. Pretty much the devil shows up and opens a curiosity shop in a town. And it is filled with junk, but junk that is weirdly the thing that you want most in the world. For instance, like a Sandy Koufax baseball card or a kind of carnival glass that you remember from your boop, boop, boop. And the idea is that people in this town will do anything to get it. The price is very low, but you have to do a little favor for the guy. And what it ends up doing is it turns townspeople against each other, and the town ends up eating itself alive in this crazy sort of almost Final Destination kind of way. And I think with a series, you could really get to know, it'd be kind of Twin Peaksy. You could really get to know the people in the town. There would be someone like in Needful Things that would be in on it, that would be trying to fight against him. And then if it has legs, kind of like your idea, Kyle, he could always move to a new town.
That's
and
right.
start again. It could be an anthology, like a new town, new thing. You get to know everyone involved and watch them all sort of dance to the devil's tune. So that is my idea. Needful Things.
That is a great idea. Yeah, I think Needful Things almost lends itself exactly to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice.
Bring it home, Ray.
All right. I'm coming home to the place where I belong.
This is how someone acts if they forgot that they had homework to do. No, I totally read that book, and they just sort of repeat what's on the back cover.
It's a pulse-pounding, page-turning thriller.
I found this to be a joyous romp, like something that a kid would never say.
I'd say it's the best book of the summer, says the San Francisco Tribune.
Okay, so I've actually had this idea for a couple of months, and I got really excited whenever Kyle came up with this idea. So bear with me because it's kind of crazy, and then it takes a left turn out of nowhere.
Take us on a trip, Ray.
So
now I can see storyboards reflected in your glasses.
Right?
You've really worked on this.
So have you guys ever seen the movie Halloween 3: Season of the Witch?
Oh, yes. That's the one with the masks, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
With no Michael Myers.
And no Michael Myers, right?
Correct. So for those of you at home who might not have seen it, Halloween 3: Season of the Witch is about Halloween masks, specifically a set of masks manufactured by a company called Silver Shamrock. And they're all...
That theme, I forgot. And the theme from the commercial just came back to my head because of the name. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The masks are all the rage that year. Every kid wants one. There's even this recurring commercial, 8 more days till Halloween.
Yep.
And it's really annoying. And the commercial promises that there's going to be this big giveaway on Halloween night to all the kids that own a Silver Shamrock mask. But when a deranged man turns up holding one of these masks saying, "They're going to kill us all," Dr. Dan Chalice thinks there's something foul about this mask company. So he goes to Santa Mira, California, where he discovers Silver Shamrock and its founder, Connell Cochran, are the force keeping this town alive. They're governing it, etc. And soon our hero finds out that Connell Cochran is using these masks to murder all the children who wear them. Murder. And incidentally, Connell Cochran is played by Dan O'Herlihy, who's in Robocop. He plays the president above Dick Jones.
I'm very disappointed in you.
Oh, that's the disappointed guy. I gave it to the wrong person last time. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so now here's where it takes a left turn. In the movie, it says that Connell Cochran got his start by making, like cheap toys and gags and practical jokes. And he made a name for himself and he became one of the most respected men in the toy making business. What a lot of people don't know is that movie was actually really inspired a lot in ways by Don Siegel's 1956 Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And the name of the town in that movie is the same, Santa Mira, California. So I had this idea, what if they're the same town? And what happened is, after Invasion of the Body Snatchers, after all the pod people have come and the government comes and rescues everybody, what if the town never recovered from this? And what if it became known as the town that spawned the pod people? No one wants to do business with these people anymore or anything. The town's economy crumbles, but then one man steps up and builds his toy-making empire to help sustain the town. And one day he uses that toy-making empire to kill everyone for not aiding his town and his people in their time of need.
Wow.
Revenge.
So my series would basically follow Connell Cochran as a guy that got left in the dust at the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and follows him as he builds up his empire and kills people and does things. And
I love it. I mean, if it's around a supervillain,
yeah,
and it sounds like there's going to be boardrooms,
right?
So I'm in. That sounds great.
Can you add in a legal battle at some point?
I'm sure we can.
Is the city actually a submarine? All right. That's great. I love all of that. And I love that connection. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that was. I say you have definitely done your research. That is definitely a passion project.
Well done.
I like it.
Thank you.
I am subscribing to all of these services.
Woo! I'll subscribe for a week just to watch Tommy's, and then I'm getting rid of it.
And then cancel.
Then you're going to pull a shutter.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we've done my game. So now let's move on to the SatMat game. And we're going to talk about awkward meals.
It's a nice ham this year, Mom.
Oh, yeah. Grammy always does such a good job.
Great sauce.
It is. It's dynamite ham.
So, Ray, you had the first trailer, which means you get to have the first of the game.
Awkward.
Can you remind people what this is? The SatMat game in general?
SatMat game. So we were given the category of awkward meals. And so each of us went away and picked 3 films that had something that had to do with awkward meals. We can pick our own themes and ideas. And then we're going around to see if we do it. And if anyone has a duplicate, then the other person steals. They're good. And the winner gets bragging rights. I guess I don't know.
And this is based on whatever movie Pete and Andy were watching in the Father Show, right? Got it.
Right.
Okay.
Which I cannot remember what the name of
it was. Life is Beautiful, Roberto Benigni.
There it is. Life is Beautiful.
That's right. I do not like that movie.
It's The Day the Clown Cried, but
No. All right, Ray, hit us.
All right, Ray, hit us.
Okay, so for my first awkward meal, picture this in your mind's eye. So you're at a diner and you're pulling out of the parking lot and you don't notice a kid on his bicycle coming up behind you and you back into him.
Love it.
And so you feel bad. You bent this kid's tire. You take him home in your car. You meet his family, who are awkwardly overly welcoming whenever you arrive. And they invite you to stay for dinner. And guess what's for dinner? All of this kid's favorite foods, like ice cream and candy apples and hamburgers with peanut butter on them. I am talking about Twilight Zone, the movie.
So smart. Love it.
Nice.
Specifically, Joe Dante's segment. The name of the segment escapes me now. I knew it all day long, but whatever. And
the original short story was called "It's a Good Life." So there's a good chance that maybe that's what the episode was called.
That's it. And so basically, it turns out that this kid has these powers where he can make anything he imagines come true. So he imagines this life for himself where he gets to eat whatever he wants, and his family all love him to death. And
while they're all actually terrified.
Right.
Yeah.
He makes cartoons come to life, and then whenever someone ticks him off, he makes the cartoons kill them.
That's an outstanding pick. That's one of my favorite short stories of all time. It's called "It's a Good Life" by Jerome Bixby, and it's really just about what if God was a child.
Yeah. Okay.
If you gave a child godlike powers, he will. What is constantly said in the short story is he will wish you into the cornfield.
That's right.
It is never explained what that means, but it ain't good.
Yeah,
he didn't wish
Bill Mummy was the original kid in the original Twilight Zone episode, I believe. Right?
That's right.
Went on to do Lost in Space and
Yeah.
Babylon 5.
Great choice. I love it. I'm actually slightly angry I didn't come up with that on my own. Good work.
Yeah, Stephen King did a riff on that too in, what was it, The Regulators?
I don't know.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. A kid in the same situation. So, all right. So I'm next because of Dune.
What you got?
Dinner with your parents is always awkward, but dinner with your parents when they're leaders of a country is much more. And so my pick is from 1988. Coming to America. Ooh. If you remember the scene, it's like they're at the opposite end of the table, and then finally the young prince decides to just stand up and walk over to talk to his parents as opposed to using the intercom, which because they have their thing so tall. And it ends with a great thing too, as he finally comes, sits down, and his father looks at him and goes, "You've grown a mustache."
Joffrey,
I have to watch that movie again.
Yeah, it's like I watched that scene again just to make sure it was as good as I remember, and I was like, I remember how much. Yeah, and you need to because the sequel's coming next year.
That's right.
Coming to America with the number 2.
I don't get it.
Adorable. Yeah. We're bad at titles. My first one, because I didn't want to get stolen, is a movie that I don't think a lot of people have seen, but if you are a fan of Philip Seymour Hoffman, it's one of my favorite movies he's ever done. It's called Owning Mahoney, where he plays a gambling addict. And it is a beautiful movie. It's really funny and sad, and if you like that kind of feeling of, is it going to land on black or is it going to land on red 22 or whatever it is, this is your movie. And during it, at one point, after he loses a significant amount of money, they'd been treating him like a whale, the casino had, and he kept ordering ribs with no sauce. That's what he always wanted. By the time the ribs finally come, he has lost all of his money, and so he eats it with the person that brings it to him in the stairwell. He has gone from the height of riches to nothing, and he's eating this sauceless rib, talking to this guy, and it is a little awkward. They end up becoming sort of a team of sorts, which I won't spoil, but yeah, so it's a rough, you've just seen someone, I mean, he is devastated, and he's eating sauceless ribs. There's something about the fact that the ribs are sauceless makes it so much sadder. It's like giving a tuna fish sandwich without the bread. Like, what are you doing? But anyways, it's called Owning Mahoney. I highly, highly, highly recommend it to anyone.
Nice pick.
Thank you.
All right. Ray, what you got?
All right. So for my next movie, imagine this.
Oh,
you are a real estate salesman and your boss says, hey, there's this guy that's going to buy that big mansion across the street, but he lives across the ocean. You got to go to where he lives and make him sign the papers.
Oh, this is an old dinner. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, well, is it though? So you go across the ocean and you go to this guy's house and he is uncomfortably pale. And, you know, you're eating dinner and you're cutting the bread. And when you cut the bread, you accidentally slice your finger and start bleeding. And then all of a sudden, this guy jumps up from his chair and just starts sucking your thumb, sucking all the blood from the cut wound. I am speaking of specifically 1979's Nosferatu, the Vampire, from Werner Herzog.
Werner Herzog.
That's great.
I was wondering which adaptation you were going for.
Yeah,
like,
we knew it was Dracula, but it wasn't.
Is it a whale?
Yeah.
It changes in different adaptations. Like sometimes it's a paper cut, sometimes it's a knife. So I went with this one because it happened at dinner.
Yeah, that's right.
That is awkward, although I'm guilty of it myself. So.
Oh, Tommy.
Yeah. Classic Mets. All right. Sorry, classic handsome. No one on this podcast knows what my last name is.
That's right. Classic handsome. So my next one, actually, you'd think this would be a theme, but it actually isn't. It just happens that I just found two incredibly long tables. So first dates are awkward, but super awkward when you go to the rich guy's house and he puts you in a room and you're at the far end and you're trying to have a conversation and you can't do it.
Yep.
But especially when it turns out that guy is secretly Batman.
Right.
Yep. So from 1989, Batman, and another ends with a great line where Vicky Vale is asking Bruce Wayne about like, oh, so you've eaten here a lot? He says, you know, I don't think I've ever been in this room before. Like,
yeah, doesn't he start by saying, yeah, I eaten here. I love this room. This is like always
nodding. Yeah,
wait, I've never been in this room.
Michael Keaton is a master of the slow burn. And shaking his head yes and looking around, then slowly just takes a beat and goes, you know. Yeah.
That is on my backup list.
Sarcastically just like, can you pass the salt?
Yeah,
and he like brings it all the way down and then walks all the way back. Yeah, that's great.
And especially in a Batman movie, it's this nice light comedy moment.
Yeah, it's a weird dinner set piece for this little. Yeah, that's interesting.
And then they wind up in the kitchen at the end.
Yes, and then it gets intimate. Yeah, like when they're actually like sitting next to each other and.
Oh, that makes me want to watch that movie again. I'm looking over where it is. It's right there.
You can watch Batman straight up murder dudes.
Like an American.
Yeah. Well, I just think that's really funny. Is like you go back to watch Batman and like there's a scene where he drives the Batmobile into a building full of people and drops a bomb and kills them all. And it's like,
yeah. we were down with that at one point.
They were spiking cosmetics. They deserved it.
Mine is my second one is one of my favorite movies. It doesn't hold up as well as I wish it did, but it's actually Doug Liman's second movie after the aforementioned Doug Liman's second movie after Swingers. It was Go. which came out as the rave, which was like a teenage rave movie when rave was done. Yeah. It tried to capture lightning in a bottle, and the bottle was broken, and the lightning was gone. But either way, it is a very Tarantino-esque twisting, multiple stories all involving and going back and forth in time, and one of them involves actors. I mean, they play actors in the movie. Scott Wolf and Jay Moore go over to a cop who has sort of been shaking them down by William Fichtner and his wife, Jane Krakowski. They have what seems to be a very psychosexual relationship. They think they're being invited into the bedroom. Instead, it turns out that William and Jane are inviting them to sell a version of Amway called Consolidated Products. And so the entire dinner just becomes revelation after revelation, and each one is just weirder and more awkward, and then they finally have to just sort of peace out by the end of it. So that's just one that I've always enjoyed. So that's Go.
Yeah, I agree. It was a lot of fun. Tons of amazing performances in that. And it has not aged terribly well.
But a lot of the style has still. Yes. It's still a really very confidently directed movie.
Yeah, and it's John August's one of his first screenplays too.
Really? That makes sense. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Nice.
I did it. All right. Back over to you, Ray.
All right. So for my final pick, this was one of my absolute favorite movies when I was in high school. So for a lot of people, it's really awkward whenever you're at dinner and someone burps or someone does like hiccups too much or maybe backwash. I don't know. But people get a little finicky with some of the more gross aspects of eating. Sure. Well, in this movie, this segment of the movie takes place in a restaurant where a very large man comes in and starts
is he stuffed?
Yeah. He is absolutely stuffed. And he orders everything on the menu and starts vomiting all over the maitre d' and the cleaning lady, and the staff have had enough, and the maitre d', after his tremendously huge meal, gives him a wafer thin mint. And this throws him over the edge, and the man known as Mr. Creosote literally explodes, his entrails getting blasted all across the restaurant. This coming from the movie Monty Python's The Meaning of Life.
Yes, excellent choice.
The one part that never stops making me laugh is when he is throwing up in the bucket, and then the maid is trying to pick up the bucket, and he throws up on the maid's back. Is there something about that's such a heightening of something? Because I don't care for like fart humor, toilet humor, but that is just, they immediately break reality, and then they just keep knowing when to heighten it. That's a great choice. And we're such film nerds. You said a really large man goes to a restaurant, and Kyle and I both went, wee!
Right at the same time.
Like we both like yelled wafer thin mint at the same time.
Mr. Creosote.
Yeah.
I actually I'm sorry.
My last one. Sorry. Did you have something else?
I was just going to say, when I was in high school, I actually had a Mr. Creosote squeeze doll. Whenever you squeezed him, green goo came out of his mouth.
Merchandising.
Go ahead, Kyle. I'm sorry.
Okay, my last one. I'm surprised it did not get stolen. So it's hard enough when you're having dinner with strangers. If it
you guys really
paint
paint these mind pictures.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's it can be super awkward when it turns out all the people around you, if they knew who you really were, would kill you. It gets you more awkward. And then the worst thing is when the guy who killed your family shows up. Then things get really, really tense. And of course, I'm talking about 2009's Inglourious Basterds.
Oh!
The dinner scene is probably my favorite scene in that whole movie.
How did I not think of that?
Dynamite.
I almost put that first because I thought, somebody's going to take this. But yeah, like Quentin Tarantino at his best, I think. And also I put a lot of the success of that scene on the late, great Sally Menke.
Yes.
Who really edited that thing to like within an inch of its life. I mean, like I use that as an example of, you want to show how to have a dinner scene that is like the most tense scene in history, and it's just people sitting around eating cake. Like,
right. Yeah.
masterstroke.
Oh, I love that choice.
All right, bring us home, Dennis.
Last one. It's not fun or funny, but I love it. In a pretty good movie, there is this one set piece, and it is from a playwright that I love. I actually saw the play way before the movie was made, but it's August Osage County. And this has one of my favorite tropes in the world, just because it's so cringy and interesting. A really big family dinner where for some reason, because that's what dinner tables do to us, everything comes to light. And this is Meryl Streep, Julie Roberts, Benedict Cumberbatch. This is it's an amazing cast. This huge table. He films, I don't remember the director. I'm sorry, I'm bad at research, but he films the heck out of it. And it ends up, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it ends up with Julia Roberts tackling Meryl Streep, taking pain pills out of her hand, screaming, "I'm in charge now." And I own the DVD, and I've watched just the dinner scene probably 30,000 times, because my dream is to direct something like that at some point, because it's so hard to film that kind of a scene. And I think this is just the best way to do it. And it is both awkward and incredibly moving and powerful. And it is the turning point of the entire play and the entire movie. So I love it. August Osage County. Not funny, not interesting. No, it's interesting. I'm a bad hype man for myself. Yeah. August Osage County.
I looked it up while you were talking. It's John Wells is the director of it.
Right. Yeah, I'm an enormous fan. So, hooray!
Right, so those were our awkward dinners. Do you guys have any alternates that did not get picked?
Oh yeah, I had.
Oh yeah,
of course.
Last night,
To Kill a Mockingbird. Whenever the poor kid comes home with them and asks for syrup on his dinner.
Oh,
yep. Shrek. Whenever he's trying to eat and everybody shows up at the swamp. All the fairy tale creatures, and then. Attack of the Clones. Whenever Anakin and Padme are on Naboo, they have that really awkward.
That is pretty awkward. The floating fruit.
Yeah, and then he's like, I can't breathe. I love you so much.
So it's not supposed to be awkward.
Well,
that's one that's interesting. It's awkward for you.
Right.
When the director was like, perfect, I nailed the most romantic dinner ever.
And two I know that had been definitely picked in the past. Both had monkey brains. One was Clue, and the other one was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Right.
And then my last alternate pick was Hannibal.
That was my alternate.
Yeah?
Isn't it? Dinners are already awkward, but then that one dinner when you're fed your own brain. Yeah, Ray Liotta with corn pone word I can't say. Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Next week they are doing Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh, I haven't seen that movie in 900 years.
Yeah, say watching Mulan made me want to go. Oh, I need to go back and watch that again.
Yeah.
So they had there's a bunch of different things that popped up in there. One of the good ones I thought was Mythical Weapons.
Oh,
because they have the. So I think that could be a good one, because I can think of 3 or 4 things just off the top of my head that would fit that category.
I have one to suggest, because I'm known for not ever wanting to use these suggested ones, and I've gotten legitimately in trouble for it, but I'm going to keep on.
I'm trying to be good. I'm using the list.
Something about really choreographed fighting or choreographed violence. Like in this movie, it's literally like a dance, but that can be said for parts of John Wick and stuff. So something like that. True. What's the best way to say that? Because choreographed violence doesn't sound like
choreographed
really
fight scenes.
Hyper choreographed fight scenes.
Okay,
because that could be fun.
I like that,
because you could bring up something like Old Boy, where it's like all one take or something like that.
Yeah, Ong Ba.
Yep.
Even some of the Marvel ones you can put in there too.
That's right.
I'm giving them way too much help if that's the one that gets
I think that'd be a fun thing to talk about too, because there's so many good options.
Yeah, there's actually I'd say I know you don't like the list, but that list is actually pretty good. One of the things they have on here is Getting Poisoned. I thought that's a good one.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah.
As long as we at least come up with one of our own, I'm fine with using their garbage list for everything else.
The other one that I particularly like is because it's a favorite thing of mine is female action stars.
So now we have
that's
four,
what I'm saying. So
for
Ray,
free.
you haven't weighed in here yet. What do you think?
I say I love the idea of doing female action stars. I don't remember that being on SatMat lists or anything like that within recent memory anyway. I also like Tommy's idea.
Okay.
Nice.
All right, then. So those two. And then we want to do getting poisoned or mythical weapons.
I like the weapons myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Mythical weapons. Okay, so we'll do mythical weapons, female action stars, and choreographed violence. Is that it?
Well choreographed or hyper choreographed violence. Yeah.
Hyper choreographed
violence. Yeah, where the editing isn't doing all the work.
Right.
That's sort of what I'm getting at.
I like it. All right. So if you want to vote in that list challenge, you can. It's very simple. You can head over to the Show Talk channel in our Next Reel Discord community, and you can lend your vote to the chaos that is list picking and movie sabotage each week. How do you get access to the Show Talk channel, you ask? Well, it's very simple. You go to patreon.com/thenextreel and become a supporter of the Next Reel family of podcasts. For just a mere $5 a month, you'll become a concessionaire supporter and get access to the show's live streams as we record, like this one, early access to shows in your very own personal podcast feed, and access to the super secret member channels in the Next Reel Discord.
Real quick, Kyle, I think maybe something's wrong with your audio because it sounded like you said $5 a month. It can't be that affordable.
Oh, it is.
What?
It is just $5 a month, and you can get in on all the behind the scenes action. It's a bargain.
Whoa.
But if you're still feeling generous, we've got merch. If you go to nextreel.com/merch, you can see our TeePublic store. You know what's really cool these days? Masks. You can get a Marvel Movie Minute mask today. You can put my face on your face. Why wouldn't you want to? And for every purchase of the Next Reel mask, TeePublic will donate one medical grade face mask to frontline healthcare workers through Direct Relief.
Nice.
Come on.
Love it.
Get a thing and help a thing. I mean, that's amazing. So thanks for supporting us, and many thanks to supporting our doctors and nurses. So that brings us to the end of SatMat today. Thank you guys for helping me get through my first time in the big chair.
You did great. I thought that you were born in that chair. This was my first time officially podcasting with Kyle. Kyle, it has been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope that our paths cross again, Tommy. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And Ray, better luck next week. Just Ray, it is always a pleasure.
Yes,
a lot of
my
fun.
brother from another mother.
A lot of fun with you guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, so thank you all for listening, and make sure to subscribe to all the other stuff. Check us out on Marvel Mini Minute. We're on hiatus right now, but we'll be coming back in a month or so with Iron Man 2. So, like, support, subscribe, do all the things. Enough said.